Is brought to you by CFU, the power of service.
The UNI softball team challenged themselves during the non-conference portion of the schedule to be ready for conference play. Well, that challenging schedule paid off as UNI was ready to roll in the conference opening series against Southern Illinois. UNI swept this series, winning all 3 games. And the Panthers' Maya Dodge was named MVC Newcomer of the Week, and Kam Shaeffer was named MVC Player of the Week, as both went deep against the Salukis.
Our team did play well. We saw some things that we haven't seen all year long. Bats kind of answered every opportunity that they had all weekend long. When Southern would put up a couple of runs, we would answer back, whether it was 1 or 2. But we had a lot of crooked numbers on the scoreboard this weekend, and something that, like I said, we haven't seen. So it was nice to see that out of our offense. From a pitching standpoint, Caitlin Packard threw 2 great games, and in the first game we kind of pieced it together with our staff, and that's what I've been talking about a lot. In that first game, if you look at it, there was 5 pitchers that threw, 3 of ours, 2 of theirs. It was a tough day to throw. Wind was blowing out a little bit, so hitters had a little bit of an advantage if they got one in the air. But it was a tough strike zone. It wasn't a bad strike zone. It was just tough. And so when you're facing 2 lineups that can really swing the bats, and pitchers have to throw it over the plate, completely over the plate, then things like that happen. And it took our staff. It wasn't that anybody did poorly in that first game. It took all 3 of them to get through that game. And hats off to the offense to put them in a position to have to be able to do that. But it's a good way to start the league. 3 games under our belt, great competition, one of the tougher teams in the league, and now it's a matter of making sure that we stick with what we've been doing, because it's obviously working. We're going in the right direction, little steps forward, and hopefully this weekend when we square off against Evansville, we'll see something new again. We saw definitely a lot more aggressiveness, and I think it showed up on the bases. It showed up at the plate. The one thing, and you just can't talk about it. You just got to wait until something happens. But we got smacked in the face. We were down 7 runs in the first 2 innings of our first Valley weekend, and at that point, there's not much you can say as a coach. You just kind of watch and see how your players respond to that situation. And I told them, I said, in the last couple years I would have seen a team that probably would have just coasted through and kind of not given up, but not seen hope, not seen like, okay, we can do this. And it was funny because you could hear the comments that were being made, like, hey, it's a long game. Wow, I haven't heard that in a long time. Like, hey, we still got this. And they showed it, and they didn't quit, and they didn't quit, and they believed that they were still going to win that game. From the offensive standpoint, I think we prepared a little bit differently this last week, being able to focus just on one team and focus on the 2 pitchers we knew we were going to face. Also being very familiar with those 2 pitchers, facing them a lot last year. But we were able to kind of just really tune in and be really specific in how we prepared this weekend. I think some things are starting to emerge. That happens when you travel 5 weekends in a row and you're on a bus together for 8 hours one way. It starts to happen, but it's something that you can't force it. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is they try to force that leadership to push forward and push who they want to move to the front and start leading. And I think it happens organically, and the cream rises to the top. You just got to give it some time, and obviously there's some people that you want to empower to do some things and help educate them how to be a good leader, because they already have the qualities. And some of those people are starting to emerge for us. You look at it, Maya Dodge, a freshman, has definitely stepped up in a leadership, how she plays the game, and people are starting to follow her. That's the same thing that Sammy Bunch did, but everybody knew who they needed to follow. And now Maya's been doing it on the field, doing it with actions. She isn't somebody that's going to tell everybody what to do or how good she is. She just goes out and plays the game the right way and has a very, very high softball IQ, and also gives a lot of credit to the people around her. She hit a home run this weekend and gave credit to one of her teammates for pointing out a tendency that a pitcher was given.